glad you look at the structures. It's because the steroid receptors, remember I talked about cortisol and cortisol, those receptors are so specific, they can tell that there's one proton missing. But we can generate these molecules that look nothing like the natural steroids and fool the receptors. To me, that's fascinating. Anyway, these compounds didn't exist until 15, 20 years ago. One of them, this one, this lerongestrel, this is one that's also known as Norplant, or actually, I don't know what they call it these days, but when I was a kid, it was called, when it first came out, it was called Norplant. And so this is one of the ones that you can get either as a patch or implanted under the skin. And it's a pure progestin. I know it's not a progestin as we define it with natural steroids, but it binds the progesterone receptor, in this case, I believe, a higher affinity. So the advantages of, and again, it's a pure progestin. The advantages are, if it's a patch or an implant, you don't have to remember to take a pill. If we have endometriosis, for example, there's no estrogen, so you're actually not building a lining, you're not stimulating those uterine cells as much. And the other one, which actually has only become available in the last, also 15, 20 years or so. This is the one that's called Depo-Provera, or hydroxyprogesterone acetate. This one's also controversial for a number of reasons. It was developed in third world countries. There's question about consent of the people that it was tested on. It's an injectable. I don't think you take it any other way. It's injected into deep muscle. I think at least the first usage of it, you got 4 shots a year. And in many cases, you simply don't have a menstrual period at all. It's a pure progestin. And some doctors, some health workers have, and some women prefer to not have a menstrual period. So you can use this. One, you don't have to remember to take the pill. It's acting as a contraceptive. But if you so desire, you don't have to have a menstrual period at all. The other thing that all these pills do is the progesterone, in addition to blocking the cycle, so that you don't develop follicles, you don't have an LH surge. There's another cycle that I haven't told you guys about, and that is the cervix. Remember the cervix? So the cervix is that muscle between the vagina and the uterus. The cervix produces a mucus, and actually, this is confusing in the literature. So the cervix produces a mucus. And what you'll read in the literature is that that mucus at the time of ovulation is confusing. That the mucus is thick and progesterone makes it thin. Now, it depends on what you're reading. In that context, what it means is the layer of mucus on the cervix at the time of ovulation is thick, the height of it, but it becomes thin with progesterone. That's what some literature means. You got that? When it's thick, though, imagine it's like a sponge. Imagine the mucus is like a bunch of fibers. It's like a sponge. When it's thick, height-wise, that's how sperm get through. So imagine a sperm, which I got to give it to my little guys. They got to swim all the way through the cervix, get all the way up through the uterus and the fallopian tube. I can't swim the length of a swimming pool. So when it's thick, that means that there's space, right? Imagine a sponge, and they can swim through. After you ovulate, the progesterone makes it thin. That means imagine I've collapsed a sponge. It's more viscous. So sometimes you'll read progesterone makes the mucus thick. What they mean is they make the density thick. So some women, if you're trying to get pregnant, for example, you rub and test the thickness of your mucus. That means like the viscosity. Does that make sense? So when you're on any of these pills that have progesterone, it makes the mucus of your cervix thin in height, but thick and viscous, so the sperm can't get through. So that even if you had ovulated, the little guys can't. They're knocking on the door. Also, because you don't have any estrogen, if you're taking one of these, you don't build up the lining of your uterus. So the lining of your uterus is thin. And so one idea is, even if you were fertilized, the lining of your uterus hasn't been built up because you've been on a progestin only. Does that make sense? Now, the bad part about that is, if you're on the pill, you're not protected from STDs. Now, when I was your age, HIV/AIDS was a much bigger thing than it is now. There were no working drugs. And so it turns out when the mucus is thin, or your uterine lining is thin, it's easier for HIV to get across. And so it increases the likelihood of you getting HIV. This became a big issue because the World Health Organization wanted to send, I don't know if they eventually did, wanted to send Depo-Provera to several developing African countries. And the idea is you can control the population, they won't have to remember to take a pill, but these are populations that have the highest HIV rates in the world. And so you're taking a drug, millions of women are taking it here, and administering to people that are already at really high risk of HIV, and you're kind of trying to control a population that doesn't belong to you, if you know what I mean. Other issues are some women, even after they go off of Depo, don't menstruate for a year and a half sometimes. So there's some controversy using the drug. This compound, the one that I told you is Norplant, is also used in a different way. It's controversial. It's used, when I was in school, when I was in college, we had something called the morning after pill, which was mostly an estrogen. Now you have, I guess it's called Plan B now. So Plan B is a big dose of the compound on the right. It's a big dose of Norplant. You can also do the same thing by taking a bunch of your birth control pills. And the idea is you have intercourse, unprotected sex, and here's what I find a little bit kind of unbelievable. And you think, I might ovulate. And so if you take this pill, supposedly what it does is it blocks the LH surge so that you don't ovulate after you've had unprotected sex. Now the controversy, am I going too fast? Okay. The controversy is there's some evidence that a big dose of this thing actually causes a vibration or disturbance in the uterine lining so that the conceptus can't implant. And which I probably think that's probably more likely what happens. The idea that you catch and block ovulation anyway. The problem is that makes it an abortive, not a contraception. So contraception means against conceiving, right? But if you've conceived, you now have fertilized egg, then this, in some circles, becomes an issue that should be regulated. Different. There are other devices that I won't go into, other ways of delivering birth control. There are IUDs or intrauterine devices that have hormones implanted. But essentially the mechanism is the same. It's releasing, in most cases, progestins into your body. They circulate. They block the FSH. They block the LH. They keep you from ovulating. And they also change the cervical mucus so that the sperm has difficulty getting through. It's just a different delivery method. Yeah.
So all these synthetic hormones can do the same thing that estrogen does?
As progesterone does.
As progesterone does.
Mm-hmm. And again, the only reason you use the combination one is that some people like to have a cycle. Some people like to once a month menstruate. Yes?
Why does
What, Plan B? Because the idea is you're trying to block an LH surge so that you don't ovulate because you already have sperm in your body. The idea is you don't want the egg to come out. Remember the robot sucking thing? You don't want that egg to come out of the ovary in there because you have sperm in there. And sperm, we'll talk about this later on Tuesday. Sperm can live in there for 4, I think Tom Carlson said a week. But my idea is at least 4 days. I guess maybe if they bring some sandwiches or something, they can last a week. But at least 4 days, or even if you haven't ovulated. Yeah.
So why do you say it's unlikely that Plan B works by blocking the LH surge versus causing disturbance in the
I just find it hard to believe that most people can catch that kind of timing. That's just I have no data, that's just my opinion. That you can have sex and go, oh, I'm gonna block my LH surge, and that's the way it works. My guess is it really does disturb the line again. Because you've got 3 or 4 days to worry about, not one. According to Tom, you got a week. You take a week-long vacation in there. Yeah.
Is there any data to support that, like, not ovulating has negative effects?
I don't know of any, but again, I would point out, we don't have a generation of data now.
Yeah.
My mom's generation was the first generation that had birth control available, period. Obviously, she wasn't using it down here, but yeah.
How effective is it? Like, what is the chance it is to get pregnant even after you take it?
You can look that up. I don't know offhand. The most effective way is condom. But I mean, birth control pills are pretty good. People, I know somebody here who got pregnant freshman year and was taking her pill like she was supposed to. So you can get pregnant. It's not 0, but it's pretty darn good.
What about non-hormonal devices like the copper IUD? How does that work?
You know, I don't know how to non-hormonal. Yep.
The first 2 synthetic hormones you talked about, were those both progestins?
No, norethindrone is a progestin, and ethinyl estradiol is an estrogen, and they're used in combination. So, male birth control. So there's a couple ways. In fact, I had a friend who worked on male birth control. One is testosterone would work. So for example, if you gave testosterone, you produce that same negative feedback effect. Another one thing that will work is some of the same birth control methods that you use for women. So for example, you could do a progestin, and the problem is, what most women say, is that if you put a progestin in here, you're not only blocking GRH and LH and FSH, but now you don't have testosterone. So it affects libido. Although it affects libido in women as well, because when you get the progesterone, you don't have the testosterone that's associated. You could give progesterone and a combination of testosterone, so then the progesterone is blocking everything, and then you can get the testosterone back, so that you still have your libido and muscle maintenance and all that kind of stuff. You could give Depo-Provera in combination with testosterone. My friend left academia to develop male birth control in a private company. And he came back because there was no market for it. In addition, there are other methods of birth control for men. Vasectomy, so you could cut the vas deferens so that the sperm can't get out. Similar, you can do tubal ligation. You can cut the fallopian tube so that the eggs can't get out. But the rate of tubal ligation is 5 times higher than vasectomy, because men won't do it. And if you talk to most men, it's because they view vasectomy as like having a castration. But in fact, the vasectomy is just cutting the vas deferens. There's still blood supply to the testes. The other argument is that it's not reversible. In fact, it is. And it's an easier surgery than tubal ligation, but the rate of vasectomy is 5 times higher than the rate of tubal ligation. And even though the death rates are lower, are pretty low for both, you're 40 times more likely to die from a tubal ligation than you are from a vasectomy. I think the reasons for that are, go back to these words again. I told you what the womb signifies, right? It's the source of mental illness. Whereas our reproductive organs has a different route. Testis, testimony, testify, testament. Its root is linked with the same idea with the idea of truth. In biblical days, when you swore on someone, you swore on either yours or the king's testis. That was your testimony. That's why women couldn't testify. In ancient Rome and Greece, the word testis it means witness. It was a witness to the fact that you were virile. And I think it's this sort of differential, it's more than language, it's differential treatment and feelings about men and women are the reasons why tubal ligations are 5 times higher than vasectomies. It's the reason why we have so many ways to control this complicated HPG and not a single one on the market to control our simple little same thing that we do every day. That's the reason why we live in a world where 130 million women have their external genitals removed, but men won't have a vasectomy. It's the same reason why 20 years ago, and in multiple cases, there was a serial rapist who raped 7 kids, and he was coming up for parole, and he was asked, "Will you do it again?" And he said, "Yes, I would. I would like to be castrated." The judge decided that's cruel and unusual punishment. You can look at it, happening in Wisconsin, but there are multiple cases. He said, "I would like this new drug I heard about that will chemically castrate me, then that way I won't do it again." The judge ruled it was cruel and unusual punishment. And the chemical that he wanted was Depo-provera. So here's a chemical that millions of women were using. Here's a chemical that the World Health Organization wanted to send to Africa. But yet, as cruel and unusual punishment, to give it to a serial child rapist. Because that's his testis. In previous years, I sort of talked about the social, political, ethical aspects in a separate section. Because I thought, I don't know what I thought. I taught in a separate section. I mixed them in today on each issue. Whether we were talking about giving women a hysterectomy because of depression, while at the same time men won't get vasectomies, or whether we're talking about why there's so many methods of birth control pill that are considered cruel and unusual for men to have. But then I thought we should think about them all together. I thought about you as future doctors, as future patients, as future citizens of the world. You have to think about as scientists, how, as Berkeley graduates, how you want the world to look. And I don't think we should think about the social, political, and ethical issues separate from science. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Like all of you, I'm not perfect. But I've learned more than once the hard way that one of the worst things you can do is be arrogant enough, and self-righteous enough to think that just because you're aware of, just because you care about the issues, that you can't be part of the problem. I'm talking to the men and the women. The best you can do is do the best you can to make the best world for everybody. I hope that everybody else is doing the same for you.